The world is waiting for a military strike on Iran, but Israel may already be waging an undercover war against their nuclear program. Chris Mitchell has this look at some of the evidence that Israel is quietly working to disable Iran's nuclear ambitions.
It sounds like a storyline from Mission Impossible, but this is no spy movie. The plot is real. By most accounts, Iran is secretly racing to obtain a nuclear bomb. World leaders want to stop it, but sanctions and threats of a military strike have not yet stopped Iran. But is there already a clandestine war underway? Israeli leaders blame Iran for the recent bombings in places like Bangkok and India. But some believe Israel has been working inside Iran itself.
In recent years, we have an evidence of covert war against both Iranian nuclear program and Iranian missile program.
Last month, a key Iranian nuclear scientist died when a motorcyclist attached a magnetic bomb to his car and detonated it. Iran claims there have been other attacks, and the scientists aren't the only targets.
It combined hitting missile program and the nuclear program. And the missile program is delivering. It's the platform that delivers the bomb.
In November, a mysterious blast shook a missile base near Tehran, killing the father of Iran's missile program. Israeli government minister Moshe Ya'alon said the base was developing a missile capable of hitting the U.S. Before that, the Stuxnet virus disrupted computers connected to the nuclear program, causing centrifuges enriching uranium to spin out of control. So who could be behind it? Last week, one report pinned the assassinations on an Iranian opposition group, backed by the Israeli Mossad. Israeli intelligence analyst Mickey Siegel says preventing a nuclear Iran appeals to a number of countries.
On one hand, we have, let's say, Saudi Arabia, which is the biggest opponent and rival of Iran in the region. And you have, of course, all Western states that are threatened.
Still, despite the success of this covert war, Siegel says it won't stop the Iranians in the end.
But it will not stop the Iranians from achieving the goal of the first Shiite bomb.
Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
It's fascinating. The Mossad is, Terry, is so superb in what they do, but he said it's not enough to stop the bomb.
What is enough to stop? I mean, if you take out the facility, you've stopped it,
They haven't
right?
taken them out. They've got to go ahead and blow it up, and that's what Israel's thinking of. So we're looking, it's not a fun thing to think of, but we're looking at a potential war between now and June. So,
And where do we stand in all of that? Where do you see the United States?
we've got to have Israel's back, but I don't think so. I think Obama has been reluctant to get involved, but I think if his fingerprints aren't on it, he'll feel very comfortable that Israel goes ahead and does the dirty work. But behind the scenes, I don't know what they're doing, but obviously we ought to help the Israelis if there's any possible way we can do it. We just cannot have a world in which the Iranians have nuclear capability and delivery mechanisms to take the bombs all the way to the United States. We just can't have that. And they're evil people. They're vicious killers, and they want to destroy vast swaths of humanity in the name of their 12th Imam. So I think there's no question they're not going to be. You can't negotiate somebody out of a deeply held religious view. You couldn't negotiate me out of giving up Jesus. I mean, you couldn't. Right. You couldn't. And you can't negotiate Ahmadinejad out of giving up the 12th Imam and what they believe about Islam. You can't negotiate that. The only thing you can do is just have some force. Well, it's an interesting prospect. And Lee, let's get on with the news.
Well, related to that story, Pat, U.S. officials are concerned Iranian terrorists may try to strike Israeli and Jewish targets here in America. Israel accuses Iran and Hezbollah of planning recent attacks in Thailand, India, and the Republic of Georgia, as you heard Chris Mitchell mention in his report. Homeland Security Secretary Janet Napolitano says the U.S. is monitoring the situation, but she says right now there is not a specific threat against the U.S. It's official. Congress has reached a deal to extend the payroll tax cut through the end of the year. The measure keeps the cut for 160 million American workers. The legislation continues a 2% reduction in the Social Security tax that began last year. It also renews unemployment benefits for several million others. Many Republicans had opposed the move. They were afraid it would increase the deficit. They still are afraid, but they decided it would be bad politics to fight the measure in an election year. The House and Senate are expected to vote on the bill Friday. The chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff says he pleaded with Egypt's ruling generals to resolve the crisis with the U.S. Egypt is holding at least 16 Americans on charges of trying to create unrest in that country. General Martin Dempsey told the Senate Armed Services Committee that he spent a day and a half with Egyptian generals. He said, "I am convinced that potentially they were underestimating the impact of this on our relationship. When I left there was no doubt that they understood the seriousness of it." Some members of Congress have talked about withholding American aid to Egypt unless it releases those Americans. Pat?
Lee, you can't talk about withholding. You've got to withhold the aid. But apparently there's one woman legislator who has lived in the United States who's been driving this initiative, and I think other people in Egypt haven't really been paying attention. It's, as I say, I've said the last few days, it's inexplicable what they're doing. Why are you doing this? It makes no sense at all. So the chief general goes over there and says, fellas, stop. And yet these generals look like they're powerless to act. And now Congress is, quote, talking about cutting off aid. You cut off aid. That's it. You don't give the money unless they release these people and stop these actions, these legal actions against our citizens.
They hold at least 16 Americans, and they don't recognize what the seriousness of that would be.
It's like they're living.
And these are people in political positions.
Some kind of a miasma. I mean, these generals are out there with their troops, and they're marching in the field and doing their maneuvers, and they weren't sensitive to what's going on. Well, General Dempsey says he's made it clear, but whether that's going to work or not, but the thing that'll make it clear is you cut off their money. Lee.
Pat, Congress is taking action to protect employers who object to a government regulation that would force them to purchase birth control for their workers. It's called the Respect for Rights of Conscience Act, and it exempts any employer who has religious or moral objections to the rule, not just religious institutions. Right now, 38 senators and 186 House members support the act. The White House says exempting groups from having to provide the coverage is dangerous and wrong. The country's top Catholic bishops and other religious groups are also fighting the rule, Pat.
Well, they should. It's going to be a serious matter. And I want to correct something I said, but amplified. There's a woman, she's a cabinet member. She's not a legislator, cabinet member, whose name is Naga. And she is the one, for some unknown reason, who is leading this crusade against nonprofit groups. She somehow has got it in her craw that the United States government is funding these groups to do subversive activity in Egypt. And of course, it's foolishness what she says, but that's what she believes. And these generals, I guess, haven't been clued in to what she's doing. And she's apparently a very effective lady. Well, we've got something that's happy, a happy sports sideline. We've had these interesting Christian athletes, and we've got another one. Lee.
That's right, Pat. Tim Tebow captured the imagination of football fans this past season. Now there's a similar story developing in basketball. Up until a couple of weeks ago, few had ever heard of Jeremy Lin, but he's led the New York Knicks on a 7-game winning streak. He's quickly becoming a household name in the NBA, and like Tim Tebow, he readily talks about his faith in Christ. Ephraim Graham has the story.
Call it Linsanity. Number 17, Jeremy Lin, has New York Knicks fans and players cheering again.
I've seen it everywhere. I've seen it even back home. I'm from the West Coast, and everybody's hitting me up about it, so it's sweeping the nation.
Lin drives and finishes. The New York phenomenon, who has the Knicks on a winning streak, grew up in California, graduated from Harvard, and is the first American-born player of Taiwanese descent in the NBA.
He's huge back in Taiwan. Taiwanese people are crazy about him right now. His headline news, everywhere you see on TV, internet, radio stations, newspapers. He's huge.
Playing the game is a dream come true for the 23-year-old.
God is faithful, and he put us on this unbelievable journey, and we're just trying to enjoy everything right now.
At 6'3", the new NBA player still sleeps on his brother's couch in New York. He went undrafted until injuries plagued the Knicks and the coach gave him a shot.
He's just a solid guy. You know, he's walking around here. His mentality hasn't changed. He's the same guy that was coming here early fighting for a 10-day contract.
Lynn now has a guaranteed contract, but a heart that remains as humble as it was before all the Linsanity erupted.
Basically, just try to trust in God and have faith in whatever circumstances that I'm going through, and to be able to try to grow as a person and learn and become tougher, and also at the same time grow as in my relationship with God. And that's what I try to focus on whenever I go through tough times.
Ephraim Graham, CBN News.
And he also has a Harvard degree. Not too bad. Pat, I like that number he's wearing, 17. John Havlicek made that number famous for the rival Boston Celtics back in the 60s. I think Jeremy Lin's making it famous once again.
Who ever heard of that? Comes off the bench, undrafted. We understand yesterday or today he's got himself an apartment, so he doesn't have to sleep on his brother's couch anymore. Oh, who ever heard? This is crazy.
Fun to watch him play.
Yeah.
Fun to watch him
to find Tebow was on his knee praying after, his touchdown, and they win 6 straight in a row. And now the Knicks are winning. It's amazing. Just simply amazing.
Oklahoma's Republican-controlled Senate has approved a personhood measure that declares life begins at conception. The bill passed by a vote of 34-8. The measure provides embryos and fetuses with, quote, all the rights, privileges, and immunities of other people. The bill now heads to the House, where it is expected to pass. Governor Mary Phelan is expected to sign the bill into law. The writings of Sir Isaac Newton will be available to people worldwide. The library in Israel's National Library, has digitized some 7,500 handwritten pages of Newton's collection. They're now available online. Newton is often thought of as a great scientist, but one curator of the library at Israel's National Library points out that Newton was also a devout Christian. He says that he wrote far more about theology than about physics. Well, you can always get the latest from CBN News by going to our website at cbnnews.com